The first one has to do with the James Webb Telescope, despite locating six galaxies that NASA says shouldn't exist. And they're surprised by the discovery and feel they will soon have an explanation for what these mysterious findings are. Can you tell us anything about the creation of these newly discovered galaxies?
The difference in this observation is that they have discovered that galaxies formed much earlier than they thought possible. This will lead to certain conclusions about the flow of time in your reality. So the idea is conditions, the flow of time, certain physical concepts will open up a new direction, a new path in understanding of how things can form in physical reality beyond the parameters you believe always existed. That there is more fluctuation in existence in physical reality, in the creation of different attributes, different elements, that the flow of time is not always even, and it might even be representative, if they look deeply enough, into the idea of the penetration into one reality of a parallel reality. So it will open up all these questions and all of these opportunities for new discoveries.
Great. Um, Also, with commercial space travel being now presented by several people, and it's creating like a whole new frontier in terms of travel and everything. Can these be people who are offering this start making claims to owning the planets? And how would the ETs respond to that idea?
Well, first of all, your own laws, to some degree, prevent people from making claims of other planets. There are already some discussions and agreements in place on your planet, legally speaking, that talk about how the moon and Mars and other planets in your system belong to all of humanity. So even though someone may try to make a claim, it might not be something that would, in your terms, be successful. Nevertheless, people will try to do whatever it is they will try to do. But we are not allowed to comment too deeply on the legalities that you believe are necessary for your society to function. Nevertheless, it is not likely to succeed. And in your own solar system, this is your business. Extraterrestrials will not necessarily have any opinions of this, but leave it up to you to decide what works best for you, since it is your system. If you're talking about the idea of making claims on extrasolar planets, then no. First of all, of course, you may find that many of them are already occupied. But again, these things will unfold as you develop more ability to reach out into space and, with our assistance, reach the stars.
You speak about how everything around us is a reflection of our own consciousness. And this individual is saying they struggle to understand whether or not people exist outside of their own consciousness. Do they actually exist? And are they having their own similar experience as what I'm seeing in the reflection, or does this work some other way?
This is again a case of people on your planet being trained to think exclusively instead of inclusively, thinking this or that instead of this and that. Of course they exist. That doesn't mean you don't create your own version of them in your consciousness. But creating your own version of them doesn't negate the idea that they create their own version of you. It all exists. But because of the nature of physical reality and how you choose to perceive things, you have to create your version of them. So what they are experiencing may not be absolutely, completely identical to what you're experiencing. But if by agreement on a higher level you agree to experience something similar, then it will be close enough for you to feel you have had a shared experience, a shared description. Any minor discrepancies are usually ignored by you because the overall description, the overall sharing seems to be consistent between you. And if it is close enough, then you consider it to be consistent. But everyone is creating their own reality, their own versions of you, that you are creating your own versions of them. But that doesn't negate the fact that everyone also exists. Again, it's sort of similar to the idea that if you're talking with someone on the phone or over a computer, as we seem to be doing with you now, you understand that it is a simulation. It is a representation of that person, a representation of their voice, because it has been converted into electronic signals and reconverted back into acoustics and visual cues. So the idea is that you don't necessarily think you're not talking to a real person. You accept the idea that what you're interacting with directly is a simulation that represents them, but you don't negate that they exist. So it's similar to the idea of physical reality. You're creating your simulation, your representation of them, but that doesn't mean they don't exist, because they're doing the same thing with you. You are exchanging on a higher level, making agreements as to what you shall call common reality, what you shall call a shared experience. And therefore, you do have slight differences in your experiences, or sometimes even great differences in your experience. But again, none of that means that these beings don't exist.
And how does the idea of reflection, it being that person being a reflection of oneself?
Well, it's a matter of degree. Not everything is a one-to-one reflection. The issues one person has don't necessarily mean you have all those issues too. But it is a reflection in the sense that there's a reason why you're experiencing that person in your life, your version of them. What does your version of them contain? Anything that you need that's relevant for you, based on what it is they are seeking to understand about themselves. So just because a person is in your life, and they may have certain issues or certain things they are examining or exploring or investigating within themselves, doesn't necessarily mean that it's a one-to-one identical reflection. It may be simply that they're in your life because you get to help them with something. Or perhaps the reflection you've created of them that you're seeing helps you get in touch with something you're working on simultaneously. It's a dance, it's an orchestration. What you need will be in your reflection, what they need will be in their reflection. But you have made an agreement that there is something you can each give to each other, share with each other, that can help you both, especially if you are aware that that's what's happening. This is why we say all relationships are for the purpose of everyone in the relationship helping all the others in the relationship become more and more of who they are. It gives you an opportunity to decide whether or not what they are saying or what they are doing or what they are investigating within themselves or with you is relevant for you, or whether you are helping them with something that's more relevant for them. It's a matter of degree, and it's a matter of perception, and it's a matter of willingness to take whatever works for you out of the relationship, while they also have the duty to accept whatever's relevant for them out of the relationship. So again, it's a dance, it's an orchestration.
And this person wants to know if existence can kill itself. Can it delete itself from existence?
No, because that's its quality. As we have said, non-existence, the definition of non-existence is that which does not exist. There is no room in non-existence for that which does exist. Non-existence, to be poetic, is already full of all the things that will never exist. There is no room in there for something that does exist. Existence is a fundamental quality. It cannot change on that level. It doesn't become non-existent. It cannot annihilate itself to that degree. It can change form. It can have experiences that you might recognize as annihilation, but you're still going to have the experience of being annihilated, which means you still exist. So it's a kind of simulation of annihilation, but not a true annihilation, because existence cannot cancel itself, because non-existence is already full of all the things that will never exist.
And how can we have free will if all of our choices are presented by the soul?
The choices are presented, but what you do with those choices is the product of your free will, how you relate to them, how you engage with them, whether you ignore them, whether you accept them, if you accept them, how you accept them, what you decide to do about what that means to you. Your free will is in the interaction with those choices. Even though you may have set up certain choices that you would call your so-called destiny, remember that it's still a free will choice from the level of spirit, and you made it from that level as a free will choice to have these choices presented to the physical being, the physical mind. But the physical being and the physical mind still have the choice of how to interact with the choices that you made as a spirit. So free will exists on both levels. It might be slightly more limited on the physical level because you do have to abide by the choices you made as a spirit for this life. In other words, whoever you are, you have to experience things as that version of you, as that personality. So the idea is whatever it is you're experiencing was set up by the spirit, but how you engage with that choice is up to the free will of the personality of the physical being.
Okay. In a hypnotic trance, can we access the template level reality and change things from there?
Yes,
Is that an easier way to do
it's
things?
a way to do it. If it works for some people, it works for them. If it doesn't work for others, it doesn't work for them. So it's up to you to gravitate to whatever is relevant and seems to work for you. It can be one way, but it's not the only way. It depends on whether it works for you or not.
This person wants to know how you can master it.
By being hypnotized.
And then once you're at that level, making those changes,
Yes, if they are relevant for you
that's
to
a
make them.
master.
Remember, mastery also includes the recognition that some things should not change. It's a recognition of the whole choice that was made as a spirit. Some things are changeable. You have the freedom to change some things. Some things may not be changeable because you have already agreed to live that particular experience through to its end, to its logical conclusion. So mastery means the acceptance of the things that can be changed and the acceptance of the things that can't be changed. That's why that exists in your 12-step program. It's that recognition that you may have made agreements on a higher level that you really do not want to change from a physical level, although you've also left some things changeable from the physical level as well. It just depends on what you have accomplished in your life, what it is you need to now understand, what kind of journey you need to take from this point forward as to what's relevant to change and what's relevant to leave alone. But being hypnotized will put you in that state. True mastery will allow you to accept what can be changed and what cannot be changed for this lifetime.
And what is the highest frequency that a soul can reach in the spirit realm?
That's a very open-ended question because the idea of the spirit realm, in some sense, even though it has levels to it, is limitless. And in a sense, frequency is not relevant for what you understand frequency to be in your physical terms. So, infinite.
So is it the idea that you could experience yourself as all that is?
Yes. And you could experience yourself as a collection of all that is, which would be a greater all that is, and a collection of the greater all that is, which would be a greater collection of all that is. It's infinite.
And is there a frequency in that sense that represents that idea?
Infinite,
Ah,
which again seems to make no sense to physical beings. And that's why we say this is not a concept that translates well into the idea of frequency as you understand it physically. I could say a million times a million times a million times a million times a billion times a billion times a billion. It would make no sense to you. There's no way to have a demarcation of the frequency you're talking about in spirit because, again, spirit is limitless.
and what is the energy of blessing in your perception, and what is its effect in particular?
The idea of blessing is to project a vibrational frequency that represents the highest level of a particular personality that is achievable by them in this lifetime, to encourage them to seek that level, to match that frequency. It's the giving of an opportunity and a reflection that allows people more opportunity to be themselves, to encourage them to do so, to love them unconditionally in their journey, in their progress. That is a blessing. It's the opening up to the possibility of what you can achieve as the individual you chose to be in this life through the acceptance of unconditional love of existence.
Okay, and this person is saying that their grandfather was an artist and he created thousands of abstract, colorful paintings inspired by lucid dreams and visions. Can you expand on where these dreams and visions come from?
Well, from experiences in spirit, out of body, in parallel realities, many different places can inspire artistic expression in your particular reality. So, if he was experiencing lucid dreams and visions, he may have been tapping into experiences he was having when he was out of body, when he was asleep, and bringing back the memory in the form of a piece of art, an expressionist kind of view of the experience he had on another realm, in another reality, tapping into parallel lives, tapping into extraterrestrial lives, tapping into the oneness of all that is, tapping into many different kinds of things. This is common for artistic expression and people who are inclined to express it that way.
When you see that, where you have child prodigies, 3 years old, creating classical music,
Yes,
and they come from an artistic family or a musical family,
yes.
the genetics play a role in their ability.
They can, yes, in making it a little easier for them to access. It's like having, shall we say, a more refined receiver in a radio kind of sense that picks up on more rarefied frequencies, more capable to pick up on those rarefied frequencies. So, yes, that can come with the body. It can make it easier for the child to access those particular frequencies that would give them those inspirations, that would give them that knowledge and allow them to download it and express it physically in that way.
So, in the sense of that, the channel Darryl comes from a vocal family that has talent
Yes,
in the vocal area. Was that part of the genetic manifestation that was appropriate, or how did
yes,
that work?
yes. The answer is yes. Artistic expression, vocal expression, different forms of communication were important in the genetic structure. The ability to tap into knowledge about communication, knowledge about the idea of languages, knowledge about the idea of vibrational frequencies, whether that be expressed vocally or artistically, doesn't matter.